So, goodness, there's so much I could say about email marketing, and I would love to talk all day, but we only have an hour. So what I thought I would do is focus on one thing and really get you hands-on with this. It's a very practical technique to support your email marketing, also to support customer segmentation. If you use CRM systems, customer relationship marketing systems, then it's very useful for that too. So we're going to do look at how this process works, see how you apply it, and get you really hands-on with it. So by the end of the hour, I hope you'll feel comfortable with it, comfortable enough to give it a go in your own businesses, which is kind of the aim of this. And there'll be time, I'll probably talk for about half an hour, no more than that, and then we can chat. Feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go along, or just raise your hand in Zoom. There's a small number of us at the moment anyway, so we can pick it up as we go. So yeah, so let me move on and let's just see what I want to show you here today. So let's just, before we get into email marketing, sadly, I am old enough to remember when email didn't even exist, and it was just it was direct marketing catalogs was where actually this sort of technique started. And I used to work in direct marketing with catalogs. And the trouble with catalogs is, as you might guess, is they just cost a fortune. They cost so much money, not just to print and design, but also to mail. Even on MailSort, which is kind of commercial mailing rates, it'll cost you perhaps 30, 40 pence each just to mail it out. So if you're going to use catalogs, and that was what everyone had before email, it's a really expensive way to do your marketing. There was no websites to send people to either. And if you weren't focused on what you were doing and who you were sending it to, you would go bust really quick, because you just can't afford to waste catalogs going out. We're talking tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. So catalog marketers early on realized that we're going to have to come up with some pretty smart ways to segment the number of people that we send all these catalogs to be a bit more targeted, to be a bit more savvy, and get more out of our marketing effort. And catalogs are still with us today. So that is my kitchen table. And that was a selection of some of the catalogs that I got yesterday, or Emma did actually, my partner. We are getting right now, because we're coming into Christmas, 40 catalogs a week. And how many email marketing messages I'm getting is hundreds. Now, okay, I'm on a lot of lists, but that's a lot. That's a lot of investment from these companies. So if you're sending stuff out, if you're sending letters in the post, because of course it could be letters. If you're B2B, you might be sending letters or leaflets, flyers. You want to make sure that what you're sending is getting cut through, and hopefully a message with it that will get traction. So it's really important to understand who am I sending to, and what's the message, what's the marketing message that I'm using. And that's just as important in catalogs as it is in email. So that's kind of where it started. So marketing emails, as opposed to catalogs, the good news, of course, is they cost virtually nothing. So you can easily, there's no incremental cost to sending out 10,000 instead of 1,000. The trouble is, because they're so cheap to send, everybody sends them. So your inbox is going, filling up with email marketing messages, along with hundreds of others. So it's hard to get cut through, because there's just so much, and so many get caught by spam filters now as well. Some of them never actually get seen. So there's again a little selection of email marketing messages that have come to me in the last week or so. And later on in this presentation, we're going to critique these a little bit and see what we think of them based on what we've learned with the technique I'm going to show you. So we'll come back to these in a second. So the focus of today is going to be, how can you do better at what you choose and who you send it to? That's the goal of today. And I'm going to show you a tool called RFM, as it's known. It stands for recency, frequency, and monetary. And this technique is really simple. If you've heard of the 80-20 rule, which I'm sure you all have, it's a bit like that, but it's much more detailed and much more useful. But it's almost as easy to use. So the big idea of RFM, which is hopefully easy to understand, is basically the customers you have that have purchased more recently, the most recently, yesterday, last week, the people that buy from you most frequently, and the people that spend the most amount of money with you, they are the best prospects for your future sales. Okay, so in marketing, we have really got to say, okay, let's find out who these people are and match what I'm spending on marketing with what I think they're worth. And this technique will give you a good handle on what they're currently worth, and you can also use it to estimate what they might be worth. So it's really easy to understand the principle. I'm going to show you how to do it in a second. It directly contributes to your return on investment, because what we're trying to do is you only spend money on marketing when you think you're going to get a return. And if you don't think you get a return, then don't spend the money, or spend it on something else, but don't waste marketing money. And that's what this is trying to stop doing. It's very cheap to do because you're going to do it. You're not going to employ someone to do it. So there's no cash going out the door to make this happen. It's just your own grunt work to make this work. And it's also a great starting point, a stepping stone to doing more sophisticated analysis, particularly if you're looking to segment your audience. So it's a good starting point as well as not just something in itself. Now, as I said, this came from catalogs. So it was built for sort of B2C businesses with lots of transactions, people buying soap or books or things like that with reasonably low value. So people buy them a lot. So that was what it was designed for. But as I said at the beginning, you can use it if you're a B2B customer. You can even use it if you haven't got any customers. You've just got prospects. You've just at the stage in your business, maybe a very new startup where you've got some contacts, you're building up your email list, but you don't have many sales. That's okay. We can adapt RFM for that too. So there's something in this for everyone, I hope. So let's see how it actually works. How do you start? You start with your database of customers. So you make a list of all the customers you've had in the period you want to look at. And that could be from the day one you opened your doors, or if you're a bit more mature business, I've been in my current company has been in business for 12 years. So I might not want to run it across 12 years. So I'd probably run it on. So retailers would run this probably twice a year. They would also run it at the 13-month mark, because that enables you to see year on year. What did people do last month, last Christmas, last December, for example? So 13 months in is a good time to be running it. But you can run it. You can run it as often as you like. If you run it too often, you probably won't see much change. But the starting point is to start with your customers. Let's say you're looking at 13 months, as I mentioned. First thing to do is just sort your customers in date order. So the most recent people, the people who bought with you yesterday, will be at the top. And the oldest customer in that period, 13 months ago, if it was that time frame, they'd be right at the bottom. Okay. So that's the first sort. And once you've done that, you're then going to basically label them with a number. Divide it into 3. So there's my little graphic here that says I'm going to divide this list of all your customers into 3 equal thirds. So if I've got 500 customers on my file, that's by my maths, that's about 166 in each third. So the top third, the top 166, you will number them a 3, the best third. The next 166, the middle group, you'll give them a number 2. And the oldest ones, the ones who have bought least recently, will have a number 1. Okay? Simple enough so far? Cool. Now, why do that? What is the purpose of that? Well, the purpose of that is that people remember their most recent purchases. So they know what they bought yesterday. They know what they bought last week. Do they know what they bought last month? It's getting harder. Do you know what you bought last spring? Item by item? No, you don't. We don't know. Not unless it was a car or a house, okay? But we're talking about more frequent items than that. So we know that we probably have less work to do to talk to the people that bought from us yesterday, last week, the week before that, than we do at the bottom. We've labeled them a 1 who bought last February. They bought nothing since, right? So they don't know us that well. They don't remember us very much. So we've got much more work to do with those 1s to remind them of who we are at all, rather than the top third, where we really want to remind them that, hey, you just bought a fantastic item from me last week. So just by doing this, by talking to them, knowing that I'm a 3 or a 2 or a 1, what you're going to say to them, the marketing message you're going to talk to them about, if you want cut through, is going to be different. The 1s, you need to say who you are as a business. The 3s, you should be talking about the product. And if this was not sales, but it was email contacts because you haven't got any sales, then the person who contacted you yesterday by email saying, oh, I'm really interested in what you do, May, tell me more about it. They know that they've just contacted you. They know that sent that email. But the person who sent you an email 6 months ago, they may have even forgotten that they even sent it or what they wrote. So already we're thinking, okay, there's probably a different message for the people at the top of my list than the ones at the bottom. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat that process with 2 more sorts. So having labeled the first ones on recency, the last time I heard from them, the last time they bought something, now I'm going to have frequency. How many times have they bought? How often have they emailed me? And I'm going to do exactly the same process, just sort them by how many times, and then I'm going to label them again. The people who have bought from me the most get a 3. The people who have emailed me the most get a 3, or phone me up. If you've got a CRM system, you can calculate it from that. And they get another label. So they might have got a 3 the first time, and maybe in this second sort, they might get a 1. And for each of your records, for each of those 500 customers, we're building up a code, and it's ultimately going to have 3 numbers in it. The first number is talking about how recently we've heard from them or they bought. The second sort will tell you the frequency, and then the third sort that we do is easy. It's just on sales. The people who bought the most, you add up all their sales in the period, and the people who spent the most money, they get a 3. The people who spent the least money, they'll be at the bottom of the list, and they get a 1. Okay? Why do that? Well, because the most money represents people who are, if you look at it in margin terms, the most profitable. Now, it depends on the item they're buying. Some items are more profitable than others, but if you're working across a fairly broad margin, then the people who spend the most money will be the people you make most money with. So you end up with having done 3 sorts. That's all you're doing. You're just sorting your list or your emails if you don't have any customers 3 times. That's all you're doing. And at the end of that process, you will end up with 27 cells. And all of your customers will be in one of those cells. They'll all be the same size. They'll all have the same number of customers in them. But the value to you of the customers or prospects in each of those cells will be very different. Okay? So your best customers, who are going to be your best customers in that list of 27 cells? Anyone want to have a guess? May, you're on mute.
333.
333, exactly. They are your most recent, they're also your most frequent, and they've spent the most money. So that's a fab group of customers sitting in 333. By contrast, 111, they don't come very often. They haven't come for ages. They spend nothing when they arrive. They're not great. Okay. Doesn't necessarily mean you want to fire them. You might, but you certainly want to think about how much marketing effort you're spending on the people sitting in your 111. Okay. Now, I wouldn't say to you, you want to manage every one of these 27 different segments equally, because you're probably already, May has already spotted that, 333s are our golden segment, right? Some of the others are a bit more nuanced. So let's have a little bit of a zoom into a practical application of how important this simple segmentation can be. Okay. And yeah, just a reminder, by the way, I mentioned, if you, just for those who haven't got lots and lots of customers, but you've got emails, then for recency, you would use their most recent email or letter or any form of communication, telephone calls. If you haven't got frequency, you can count up the number of inbound emails. It doesn't count if you wrote to them because they might not read it. So that doesn't count. That's just your outbound marketing. We're interested in inbound inquiries. whatever channel they prefer to use. And in terms of monetary, it's a bit more judgmental, because if you don't have any sales, you'd have to say, okay, so what do I think they're worth? And that will depend on what you know about them. So if you know that they're a really big company, they might be a good prospect because they've got a marketing budget, or they've got a budget that you need. If you know that they've got someone in charge of the contact you need to sell something, you might score them highly based on the fact that you've made contact with a good prospect, the person in the company. So it's a bit more judgmental, but you can certainly still do an estimate of monetary value. And even if you've just got a handful, we're talking about 27 segments. You're not going to look at them all, by the way. Even if you've just got, as I said there, 50 prospects, it's still worth doing this, even though you're going to have just 1 or 2 people in each segment. Because if you've only got 50 prospects, you're probably talking to people on a one-to-one basis anyway. So you might as well at least know, when you talk to them on a one-to-one basis, which cell are they in. All right. So don't feel discouraged if you haven't got lots of sales data that you can't use RFM, because you can. So let's look at an example. This is a real example. This is one of my clients, one of my older clients, Crabtree and Evelyn. Some of you may have heard of them. They're kind of bath and beauty online retailer now. They used to have 50, 60 stores in the UK and all over the world. So they used to give out loyalty cards to their customers, a little thing you put in your wallet, handbag. And I got hold of all of their data, and I wanted to see what RFM would tell us about their customers. And here's what it said. Their 333 segment, the ones that most recent, they come most frequently and they buy the most, they were worth 21% of their sales, even though in numerical terms, they're only going to be between 3 and 4% of their customers, but they're worth 21%. And on average, each one spent 650 quid a year, which actually, when you're spending on toiletries, it's quite a lot of money. Average item in toiletry could be 12, 13 quid. So they're buying quite a lot of items for themselves as gifts, maybe even using it for giveaways as they're a company. 332, so almost as good, but they don't spend as much. They come just as often. I see them very, very frequently recently. They just don't spend quite as much. So their average amount they spend has gone down to 300. Still really, really good, but I just don't get quite as much money and probably quite as much profit as a result, but still a really good segment to work with. Crabtree should be very interested in those top 2 segments, as everyone should. 223, that's an interesting segment. 8.5%, decent size. They spend money, but the thing that's slightly concerning is that they don't seem to come and see us quite as much as the 333s. So we might have some work to do with these. We want to have a look at these, maybe check out which segment they were in last time. Because if last time they were in the 333 and now they're in the 223, that means they are going elsewhere. Not entirely, still spending money with, still like our products, but someone is competing, or maybe they're using it less. So that would be an interesting segment. But the marketing message, that's where we're going with this, is what would the message be to this segment? And you're going to do some work with me in a minute to see what that might be. 313s, really interesting segment. They very recent. They saw them only yesterday, last week. They haven't come before, so this is their first visit, but they got a 3 on the amount of money they spent. They might have spent £100 in one purchase this week. First time I've ever seen them. Wow, what an opportunity to go back to them and send them a message which capitalizes on the fact that I know that they don't know that much about us, because I know that their frequency is only a 1. So a very different marketing message to our 333s who come see us all the time. Not only to talk about Crabtree and Evelyn, but I can talk about other things with my 333s. 331s, an interesting segment also. Notice the value is declining there at this segment, but 5% still worth considering, still above the average. These are regulars, see them quite a bit, they just don't spend enough. They don't spend enough. So my message to them would probably be an upsell, right? I want them to buy something that's more expensive, a more luxury item, or I might go for a cross-sell, get them to buy 2 things. And goodness, there's all sorts of marketing messages we can use to get people to bundle and buy 2 things. And this works for B2B as well. We could bundle the services that we're offering so that they get more for less than the cost of the two together. So it works in B2B as well. Really topical at the moment is the 113s. Lots of catalogs, lots of retailers, e-tailers should be thinking about this right now. Haven't seen them for a while, don't come very often, but at this time of year, they spend a lot of money, probably Christmas shopping. And I used to work in Kingfisher, retailer, and lots of people in this bucket. Worth about 4%. Again, you probably send them a Christmas focused, at this time of year, particularly October, a Christmas focused message. And we're going to look at and critique some of these in a second. And here are my 111s. So theoretically, I was saying they're a pretty crap segment. And let's look at what they're actually worth to Crabtree and Evelyn. They are worth 0.1%, virtually nothing. And yet there are just as many of them as all of the other segments, people in them. So why would I spend the same marketing effort for these people who buy virtually nothing? Why would I do that? They're probably not worth having. So if they walk through your door and they buy without you making any effort at all, fine, thanks for the sale. But am I going to spend marketing money on them? Probably not. And one of the great things about RFM, and one of the reasons I love it as a segmentation tool, not the only segmentation tool, but the reason I love it is because you've got the data. You know how recently they came. You know how many times you've heard from them. You know how much money they've spent. If you want to segment them on, are they male or female? And all you've got is their email address, you've got a problem. You may get some, but you won't get them all. And that means that you've got holes in your segmentation data. You don't know which bucket to put them in. So there could be a whole raft of segmentation data that you don't have about these people. Now, what I would look at is I'd say, wow, my 333s, what a fabulous segment they are. I'd like to find more people in their image. So now I want to ask those 333s, who are you? Give them a reason to give me some data about them. I'd love to know where they live. So I used to run, one of the first things I'd do with 333s is if you've got a store base, which stores do these people visit? I can greet them by name when they come in. I can give them a reason to come in. So you could do things to say, well, I've found the segment I like the look of. I'd love to know more about those individual people. And if you're in B2B and these are individual buyers, you could just ask them. You could just ask them about their business and capture this data and see what similarities you can see. So that's an example from Crabtree and Evelyn of just the value of these different segments, simply by running this really simple segmentation exercise. It really won't take you very long. And have I lost anyone along the way, or people still get what we're doing here? Okay. All right, I see some nodding heads. That's great. Okay. So let's go back to my email inbox that I showed you at the beginning. And I'd like us to critique a little bit now. Let's get a bit hands-on with this. These are some of the emails that they sent me. And what I've done is I've given this is information they could know about me, but I wonder if they've done their homework. So let me I'm going to drop out of share my screen like that, and I'm going to go back to share my screen just because I want to zoom in a little bit because it's a bit small. So I'm going to zoom in on that. So I want you to be able to read the copy. Is that big enough that you can read the copy of this first one? Yeah, okay. So they sell miniature alcohol things. And I buy once a year at Christmas. I put them in people's advent calendars, little bottle of gin or something. So I don't spend a huge much. I'm a 112, I reckon, because I only come at Christmas. I have only, it's a long time ago, and I spend a bit of money. I'm probably not their best customer, but I spend a bit of money. Okay. So my question to you is, this is the email that they sent me last week. Knowing that, they've said, be holiday ready with our party boxes and mini gift sets. And they're offering me 10% off my next order. It's clearly badged up as Christmas. Given that they should know my buying habits, how well do you think they've done with that email? Any thoughts? Any comments? What do you think of that email marketing effort? Maybe it went out to everyone. Maybe they didn't do any segmentation at all. They just sent it to everyone. Caroline.
I'm a little upset that they can't spell Christmas.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that, that's one of the reasons I wanted to zoom into the copy. So please use RFM, do your homework on segmentation, but don't lose sight of the detail of your outbound email marketing. This is a horrible piece of work because yes, they can't even spell Christmas. It's a Christmas email. And also look at the last line, 10% off all orders, use the code SUMMER10.
Yeah, that was odd, I thought. And
Now,
the visual is a bit cool,
yeah. So if they're going to do their tracking on the code SUMMER10, it shows the last time they used this. So there were people being used this presumably in June, July, and now they're reusing it, which is really poor. They should give a dedicated code. They should theme it Christmas along with the Christmas email they've sent me. So they've lost the plot in terms of the detail of the copy, the styling. What about the fact that they've sent me a 10% order off all orders? How do you feel about that as an offer, as a marketing hook to get me to buy something? Any thoughts on that? Because what they are asking me to do is get excited about a 10% off reduction, and they are offering it on everything. Now, if I'm a 2 and I would have spent 40 quid last year probably on this, 40, 50 quid, really, they should be trying to push my volume up. So not all orders, they should be offering me something that gets me above where I was before. So if they know I spent 40 quid last time, offer me 20% off 50. They'll actually get more margin, and they'll encourage me that, hey, this place gives good deals. So this rather blanket 10% is not going to get me very excited. And it's also not going to improve the way I shopped last year. So they haven't been great with the detail, and I think their hook could be better. Let's look at the next one. This is from Icebreaker. Don't know if you know Icebreaker. They make fabulous wooden socks and other stuff. I only shop in the sale. I'm a tightwad, right? Their stuff is really expensive. So I only shop in their sale in the January sale in winter. So they said, knowing that, and they should know, I spend plenty of money with them because I love their stuff. Been buying for years. But only once in the last year because it's a January sale. So they've said, buy our best autumn essentials. As the days become cooler, you'll love the versatile, and they go on and talk about other stuff. And there's some curious looking people in the picture. How did they do with that with me, knowing that I only shop in the sale? They should know, only buy in the January sale. Good email?
It should send you some discounts to entice you to buy before the sale.
Yeah, I agree with you, Alex. They should try and turn me from stop being a bargain hunter and fall in love with our brand. You buy it in the sale, so you love our stuff. We can see you've bought every sale, every January sale for a number of years. But I need to give you a hook, an incentive to become a non-sale, because I sell stuff all year round. So again, it's a nice creative piece. It's a much prettier piece than the first one, but they've missed an opportunity to turn me from a recency of 1, where I only come in the January sale, to be more frequent. Now let's look at this one. I have 2 dogs. These people sell dog gear, okay? And I browsed, the week before I got this, I browsed their running harnesses because I go running with my collie, okay? And they sent me this email, a new way to break free. It's like having another set of hands, sort of, and it's their new running harness that they've just launched, okay? How well have they done? So I would say, last week I looked at your running harnesses, just browsed around, didn't buy anything. This week, you sent me an email saying, we've got a fantastic running harness. Yeah, I like that. Targeted. They know that I've just looked at something, so they send me something. I didn't buy it, so this might encourage me to get over the line, because as you can see from my 311, I haven't come very often. and I don't buy much. In fact, I buy nothing with them yet. So that's really nicely targeted. So I like that. And that's a good example of, if you're going to have communication with someone who you know has reached out to you on something, a product, a service, inquiring about what you do, inquiring about your prices or your availability, whatever it is, go back to them on that point. Be that targeted. And they will have not had that many people who have looked at that range that much. So I like that. They've done well. And the last one is Faramond Life. One of my mentees has encouraged me to get into yoga and all things spiritual. So this mob, I bought a couple of yoga mats from them last month. They're not bad, quite like them, use them a fair bit. And they've said, hey, Rick, it's been a while. Maybe you can just about read that. A little something to brighten your day. Act now before it expires. Namaste from your friends, your new friends at Faramond Life. 50% off your next purchase. Here's a code. And an expiry date, which was about a week after they sent me the email. So as a new customer, only bought from them last month, I spent 100 quid, I think, or 80 quid on 2 mats. They've sent me a 15% off your next purchase. Any good? Pauline?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a
I
good
think
strategy.
it's good too. Yeah. Why do you like it, Pauline?
I think I like the way, like the community spirit, like namaste from your friends, and 15% is quite a nice promotion. So yeah, I will buy it again, definitely.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And I like the expiry as well on it, which you only got a week to think about this. So
Yes,
it's a good
absolutely.
urgency.
Yes.
So yeah, okay. So let me zoom back to so you can see those all again. So quite different emails that I got. And if they had done their homework, they all have enough data on me to have done RFM. Whether they bothered to do that, who knows? But what I'm saying is that you can see that I was in different segments, depending on which retailer we're talking about. And according to that segment, they should be matching the marketing message, the email marketing message in this case, because they're all email marketing, to my data. And they have that data. They don't need to find out anything else about me. They might like to, and that's fine. You give me an incentive to do that, and I might tell them something about myself. So the last slide before I kind of open this up to questions is, let's have a little bit of a brainstorming then. So having told you how RFM works and shown you a few examples, now I just want you to look at, so imagine you've done your RFM, okay? I'm using the same data for that I used for Crabtree and Evelyn here, but imagine you've just done your RFM and you see similar sorts of scores, sales values for your segments as Crabtree and Evelyn got. What would your marketing idea be if you were going to send them an email as part of a campaign next week, end of October? What would you send your 333s? What could you send them? They're your best customers, most recent, most frequent. They spend the most money with you. They are your most valuable segment. What would you send them?
Thank you.
Thank you.
for coming.
Well, nothing wrong with a thank you. Indeed, valuable customers do like stuff that isn't always selling, because it means you value them you value the relationship as well as just their wallet. So certainly relationship building campaigns are good. Yeah, so that's a fair point, Alex.
An early, because you're such a valued customer, an early sort of like a VIP shopping experience thing.
Yeah,
that's
a lovely idea, Alex. So, and in fact, you're right on the money, because Crabtree and Evelyn did used to do pre-Christmas events in store. They used to invite them, and they used to run them when the store closed at 5:30. They would invite them between 5:30 and 6:30, get the staff to stay behind for another hour. Drinks, nibbles. Some of the nibbles were Christmas biscuits that were being sold in the store, and they just have a nice time in the store, being loved, being valued. So yeah, absolutely. And you may not have physical premises to do that, but you can do online sessions with people like that, and people do. So all sorts of ways to make people realize how much you value them. You don't need to give them discounts, really. They want to be loved because they already come to you all the time. Why throw away margin? Just show them how much you care. Give them limited editions. Give them stuff that money can't buy. That's another great way of attracting people who are your best customers. What about some of these others? What could you do for that 331 segment there? Regular low value shoppers. So they come to see you a fair bit. You see them recently, but they're just not spending very much. They don't seem to have much of a budget. What can we do for them? What email could we send them to try and change that number one in monetary value?
Offers, send them offers for just before Christmas. That seems like quite an obvious one.
Yeah, we could send them. There's a few things we can do. Let's look at it from their point of view. We could tempt them with a deal, certainly. We could use the things that they buy. They buy a lot, right? They've got a 3 in their recent and frequency. So we see them a lot. They often shop. We could look at what they shop, see that their average item is £5, and we know that they buy, in this case, soap. We could offer them a 3-bar bundle of soap. So we know that they like the product because they buy it all the time. All we're asking them to do is to buy 3 at once. Maybe put it in a nice gift pack, and we get them to spend £10 instead of £5. And we could wrap that in a seasonal offer, and it might be a gift because they love the brand and they want to send that brand to somebody else. Another thing we can do, this is a bit sneaky, this is more for our benefit than their benefit. If we know what they like, soaps, and they buy the lemon scented soap, we're having a problem getting rid of our mint soap. We got stacks of it and no one buys it. I could offer these guys a cheap deal on mint soap because I know they don't spend a lot of money, right? So I need to get this shifted so I can clear some of it. It's better to sell it at a lower price than to have it clogging up my showroom. So sometimes you can use the data that you know about them, and you can use that to do yourself a favor rather than just focus on the customer. As I say, a bit sneaky, but look, it's a partnership and we're here to make money. It's not a charity. And one final one. Let's look at that last group, the 233s. So they spend money, they get a 3 for monetary value in sales, but their recency is a 2. So we don't see them quite as much as we might like, or possibly as much as we used to. And we can obviously look at their data to see whether last year they came more often. What could we do for that group? They've got money to spend. They do buy a few times, but we haven't seen them for a while. What could we do for them? Should we do anything for them? I would suggest that we need a way to hook them back into something that they have bought before, because we know they buy frequently. So if they've inquired about something, I can look at their sales records. If this was a service customer B2B, where I'm using the number of times they've inquired but haven't bought, I can use something they've talked about before that they thought about but didn't buy. And I can target that and give them a reason now to buy. So it's trying to get them over the line. That's what I do with them. And I would invest in them because they've got money to spend. So it's worth putting some marketing budget into basically any cell that's got a 3 on the end of it, because that says they've got some budget, right? if we see that monetary value declining, then we got to wonder, well, okay, do they still have the money? Do they still have the budget they used to have? And hey, I've got clients as a B2B customer, they haven't got the budgets they used to. Times are hard, COVID particularly, a lot of their budgets got slashed because a lot of their people weren't there. So we do have to react to the times. But the bottom line is here that whatever we do, the marketing ideas, the messages that we would send out by email to these segments are going to be different, or at least I hope they would be. So my final slide is this. I would advise you do these things soon if you want to get into RFM. Okay, have a go. Have a go. Get your customers together in your database and just see how many you've got and do those 3 sorts. Or if you're using email contacts instead of sales, then as we talked about, rank them for how recently you heard from them, how many times they've written to you, and what you think they're worth. Okay. And then you can build a little calendar of email communications, maybe based on the season, if you're a retailer, but of course for a lot of B2B, the outbound is year round. So it doesn't always have to be on the season, but that may be appropriate for you. You can make up your own events, of course. You don't need to rely on Christmas and Easter, which might not be relevant to your market. But come up with some sort of calendar of communication whereby you are tailoring what you're going to talk about to your 333s versus your 313s, and start to feel like I know who is in my 313s. If you're a small company and you've only got 50 clients or fewer, you've only got 50 prospects or fewer, really you should know who's in which segment, because you could even be doing this on a one-to-one basis. You could be ringing up your prospect, encouraging them to get a sale, and in your head you're thinking, this guy's a 333, right? So he's bought before, he knows what we do, he's a regular. I should be showing him some love today on the call. That's my job today. I want to make him feel special today. I'm not going to sell today. Today I'm going to make them feel special. But if you've got somebody who's in a different segment, maybe it's about you being a bit more pushy. Maybe you need to offer them a discount today. But you should know in your head which segment they're in, and that helps you with how you discuss things on the call or emails that you send them. Okay, it doesn't have to be just about emails, same principle. And of course, once you've spent the effort of doing this, then track what happens. Yeah, go back and look. Did it change anything? Did they buy more? Have they moved segment compared to last time? And that's ideally what you want to see, people moving around, the people you spent effort on. So those things you can do quite soon. And then finally, you can do more. You can, as I said earlier on, you might want to know more about some of these segments. Who are the people? What about these people? Who are they? Because that can enable you to recruit more customers in that image. So you might need to understand the needs. Send them a survey maybe. Or go and have a coffee with them and ask them about their needs. Understand them a bit more. And you can seed in some questions that you want to use to improve the knowledge of your segments. And of course, in a year's time, as I've said there, which customers have shifted, because that tells you whether your efforts are working. So RFM in itself is not a big investment in your time. It's a bit of investment in your thinking, because you do have to start matching up actual customers with which segment are they in, and that gives me a feel for what I should be doing with them. Okay. So that's a bit of a run through on RFM. I hope it's clear as to how the process works and what you can do with it.